truths, the future of America first, Vivek Ramaswamy. What's so frustrating to me, and I always find interviews like I did the other night with Rachel Morin's mom, the hardest interviews to do, because you're interviewing people that you know are in pain, deep pain, and there's no words that you can give them that will comfort them. And what's so frustrating is all of this is preventable, Vivek. This is not complicated. We had that border secure, not perfectly, but pretty darn close, the lowest levels we'd seen. And Joe Biden brags about undoing all those policies that worked. And then now he wants to blame Republicans and lie again and offer amnesty. Can you explain that?
Well, look, here is the hard truth. It's common sense, Sean, that if your first act of entering this country breaks the law, you are more likely to continue breaking the law while you're already here. Take Rachel Morin, for example. She was killed by an illegal migrant from El Salvador. El Salvador is a country that's now cracking down on crime in their own country. Their president, President Bukele, is coming down hard on crime, while we're not doing that in the United States of America. So these are the kinds of hard truths that deserve to be exposed. That's why I wrote the book that's coming out this fall. And even further than that, it's why we need to actually win the election this fall to restore that culture of law and order in our country, move the military to the southern border, put the Coast Guard in the Rio Grande, stop funding the federal sanctuary, funding for sanctuary cities, and send back the criminals who have committed crimes in this country to their country of origin. That's how you get the job done.
President Trump talks about securing our border and finishing the job and building the wall and stay in Mexico, and I think that'll work. He also brought up two policies recently. I was watching his speech in Wisconsin, and he talked about this when he was in Nevada. One is, let's not tax tips of hardworking men and women in this country. I spent 10 years in the restaurant business. I totally support that idea. I think it's fair because those people earn those tips, and the government, do you really have to take, every penny from every worker? Number one. Then he talked about an Iron Dome, the likes of which no country's ever seen before, understanding the nature of the threat of nuclear weapons and hypersonic missiles. Why don't you ever hear a creative idea like that ever from any Democrat?
Well, the reality is you have a leader of the Democratic Party right now that, forget creative ideas, is unable to articulate even the uncreative ones. But put that to one side, Sean. The reality is our own homeland is more vulnerable than we have ever been, in part because of that crisis at the southern border. Do the math on the 20+ million illegals in this country. Even if only 1% of them came here with awful intentions, that's still now several 100,000 people in the United States of America that could be capable of committing really heinous acts on this country. Compare that to the vulnerability of our electric grid, to not only super EMP attacks, but also a country that's more vulnerable to hypersonic missile attacks than we've ever been at any time in either of our lifetime. So it is the responsibility of the United States of America to protect our own citizens. And you see people like Joy Reid or the congressman she had on. The reality is they care less about the citizens of this country today than they do about the illegal migrants who are invading it. And the threats to this country, unfortunately, hopefully do not come to a head before we wake ourselves up and get our heads out of the sand. And that's what I do think is one of the most important nonpartisan issues for this November, is to keep this country safe and to rid ourselves of the crime and infestation that's a consequence of that border crisis.
When you debated in the primaries, I thought you showed yourself to be very able in terms of being able to debate. You're very sharp, you're very quick, you're very knowledgeable. And Donald Trump is going into what I believe, and you can disagree with me if you want, a 3-on-1 situation. The rules are certainly in Biden's favor. They're going to mute his mic. They'll probably interrupt him every time he speaks. What advice would you give the president? And do you think that out of my mind when I say that we should probably expect the return of Jacked Up Joe, the guy that we saw at the State of the Union?
I don't think that's crazy to think at all. I do think a drug test is fair game. The American people deserve transparency. There was cocaine found in the White House earlier this year, after all. And I'm only saying that half jokingly, Sean. The reality is this going to be a fair fight? Of course it's not. The reality is this going to be 3-on-1? It is. I think the American people can see through that. So up there, is it going to be a little bit uncomfortable when you have the two moderators, as though they're just debating with you, from CNN after all, along with Joe Biden on the stage? Yes, it will. But my advice to President Trump, and I'm fully confident that he's prepared to execute on it, is to just be himself. Be honest with the American people. who now see through those mainstream media tricks. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Americans understand that, and they're not about to be fooled again. And so the reality is, if he's calm, collected, stays true to his message of why he's in this for the second term, why he's making the sacrifices that he is to come back and even make that second term more successful than that successful first term, then I think things are going to go just fine. What I worry about, Sean, is that Joe Biden might go the other direction and tank completely, which means that the Democrats might get what many in their party are rooting for, which is a replacement of Biden altogether. But either way, I think Donald Trump is going to show the American people who he is and that he cares about uniting this country in a way that many people haven't seen in him. He is somebody who cares deeply about national unity, and I hope and expect that will come across next week at the debate.
He did say something in his last interview with me, and that is success will unite us. America's economy coming back, border being secure, America reestablishing itself as the leader of the free world, I think would all be very, very powerful in terms of moving in that direction. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.